or should be like. It's how they respond to any changes if they come, but they know that it's a nice downhill section into the range.
So bib number 1, Justine Brassard-Boucher, the sprint world champion who has continued her good form onto the World Cup. 2 individual wins, but none this season. She's first to push away the final individual race of the season. The Discipline Globe will be decided today. Lou Jean-Monod leading Franziska Preuss by 55 points. But it could all change today, Scott.
So it's when it gets to the end of the season, that's when the stakes are even higher. There's more to lose.
Sonja Lennemo of Finland. Big jump up in terms of her ski speed this season. Sprint is her best discipline by some margin. And, did well on her debut in the individual at the World Championships. Carolina Offigstad Norton of Norway.
Yeah, she's one of those biathletes who are just climbing up the order year on year, or last year she was overall 9th, this year now sitting in 14th, but so much pressure on the Norwegians, the expectation just by virtue of wearing that suit that you should be at the very top.
Laura Hustrova of Bulgaria, 13th at the individuals at the World Championships, her best ever World Championship performance, and one that helped her qualify for the mass start in Lenzerheide. Her first mass starter as a senior athlete, but a really good performance in this event. Of course, the full 15 kilometres on that day.
And also racing at the junior level, so gone from the World Champs to the Junior World Champs is a huge amount of racing.
Shan Richard, 22-year-old. Really making her a name for herself on the World Cup circuit this season. 3rd in the mass start in Ruhpolding, her only World Cup podium so far. But plenty of 4th place finishes and flower ceremonies to boot.
And what a rapid progression she's made year on year. Last year 39th overall, this year 4th. I think Richard is one of those ones to watch, but among a team of so many to watch, it's going to be just an ever improving French team, and that's from a position of total strength.
And of course wearing the blue bib as the best under 23 athlete, and you can see already the camera there taking a bit of a battering in the rain. Here is Lou Jean-Monod, who wears the red bib and could take her 2nd career discipline title today. Jeanne Michelon in the blocks, racing to go. Another athlete who really burst into her first podium at the World Championships and then backed it up in Nova Miesto last week. And well, Scott, it's something we've spoken about all season, but the French fans are really travelling in their masses this season, and it goes hand in hand, doesn't it? Good results, great support. They feed into each other, and it's really been brilliant to see them out around Europe this season.
It's a culture thing, and we've seen it with the Norwegians. Ida Lien has been on the receiving end of so much of the Norwegian support over the decades, but the French have slowly climbed up in terms of their international presence at events. And this year, I think more so than any, we've seen and heard their support, and has led to a lot of excitement and drama. The French culture is arguably one of the more vibrant out there.
Selina Glossian. Steely focused look on her face as she just glides out of the blocks. Well, Scott, we mentioned the skis, and of course you brought up the clothing situation as well, with it being so damp with the athletes through warm-up and zeroing. What other adaptations will be made? We saw some videos yesterday of the athletes out and in training. A lot have opted for the larger baskets on the bottom of their ski poles.
Yeah, the snow conditions can sometimes be softer towards the top, and that means that when you apply pressure through the pole, the basket can sink through that top layer. And again, it's like running on a beach. Every time you kick with your foot, you don't get that traction. So applying that pressure with a larger basket just means that the pole is more likely to compress on the top layer of snow, and therefore you get that plant and that forward pressure.
Well, leading the way in the discipline by 55 points, but it's far from over for Lou Jean-Monod. Perfect so far this season, faultless in this discipline, but she needs to keep it up today.
And if the ski speed from her teammates, Breza Boucher, Bichard, both skiing roughly the same time to 1.1 kilometre, but Knotten all the way down 11 seconds back off that time, indicating to me that the French are skiing very quickly from the gun.
Well, of course, Scott, today will decide the first two individual discipline globes, but could be so crucial as well in the battle for the overall, as we see Suvi Minkin and Wayne Bibb 13 today pull up to the gates. Franziska Preuss, you could tell she was really disappointed with some of her performances in Nowe Miesto. It allowed Lou Jean-Monod back into the battle, just 36 points separating them, with Lou Jean-Monod trailing in the overall globe. A good performance today, crucial for Jean-Monod to take the individual discipline, but also could really, really help her out as we head towards the final week.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so difficult as we get to the end of the season. The biathletes who are close or who have held that top position for the whole season, they know, oh, it's mine to lose now. And with only a couple races to go, that pressure can really get to them. And we see that not just affecting their shooting, but their skiing as well. It changes the way you approach a race. But the best practice is the best process that's worked in training, and not to change anything just because the psychological conditions have changed.
So Justine Bressard-Boucher, we just saw her in the background as Dalia Jambicka pushed away, coming down that short descent into the range, and well, you could see the flags behind as well. It certainly is a blustery day out there.
She's looking to replicate her performance in the individual race, the sprint that is, in Nowe Miesto. Second place there. And now with a 13.6 first shot, but up to the top left, you see that edge, it was close. And there we go, 5 for 5. It wasn't an accurate hit rate, but hits nonetheless.
Two of the edge shots just sneaking in. And Justine Bressard-Boucher wearing bib number 1. Of course, will be first through the range and out of shooting 1. How does the dynamic change, Scott? She was expecting to be in the middle of the packet, in the usual red group further down the order. She's now leading the race. She'll have no one ahead of her, really no one around her. How does that change the dynamic for an athlete?
It's a different approach, because if you start first, you don't have the information and insight from other racers' times. Like Kirkaiden now, she's going to know where she's skiing relative to the likes of Bressard-Boucher. Whereas on lap 1, Bressard-Boucher did not have that information, and nor will she get it throughout the entirety of the race. You can see a little bit of a tangle there with Knotten. Yep. Sorry, Ellen, just getting tangled in her arm cuff. And an edge shot, first one, is a little bit, oh, and another edge shot on the bottom, followed by a miss at the bottom. It's not good shooting, 4 out of 5, it's not terrible, but that's costly, and she will receive information about the inaccuracy of some of those shots from the coaches around the course.
So 45 seconds added to her race time. That puts her down in 3rd, just owing to the fact we don't have many through yet. Here's Jeanne Richard.
The pacing so important today, and Knotten 23 seconds back as she entered the range. Richard 9.7 seconds back off Breza Boucher's time. But getting her first shot down in 15.3 seconds. It's slow shooting, it's controlled, but so far it's accurate. Lovely, 5 shots, good start for Jean Richard.
Yeah, certainly more considered shooting, taking her time. The yellow bib of Francisca Preuss. After a disappointing week in Novo Miesto, looking to control some of the damage. She's in the hunt for her first ever overall Crystal Globe.
And pacing is so important today because if they go off too fast, you really pay an exaggerated price for that on the final laps when it's heavy snow conditions like here, like in Novo Miesto, like at Lenzerheide. And Michelon now taking her time to get the first shot, 17.6 seconds, followed by a roughly 3 seconds between shots with some variability, but a very good start for Michelon, 5 for 5.
Yeah, you speak about the pacing there, Scott. She came through 1.1 kilometres, 2.8 seconds in the lead. She made a blistering start and then just started to wind things in a little bit as she came towards the range. Lien of Norway, though, flying in, 4.7 seconds in the lead.
Wow. And good accurate shooting, so a lovely start from the Norwegian. 36 seconds to get all 5 targets down, and that you can see the wind flags actually in the background there. Pretty stable conditions.
Has a personal best of 3rd in this event from Oslo last season. Here's Lena Glottian.
You can see after the trigger is pulled, the follow through as the athletes watch the targets go down. And for Grottian, that's 5 targets she got to watch go down, and good shooting, 29.5 seconds. So among the fastest so far to get the 5 targets.
To 4th, 15.8 seconds off the pace of Breza Boucher, who still leads. But on a charge though, Lou Jean-Monod coming in 1.4 seconds in the lead.
Lovely central shot there. Of course, she doesn't know where these shots are landing with this precision, but she doesn't need to. They are so close to the center. It would take something special to see a miss. Lovely shooting from Lou Jean-Monod.
And a perfect start.
I just love that pacing.
Yeah, she hasn't missed a shot in individual competition on the World Cup this season. And was enough to put her into 2nd for now, 4.4 seconds behind Justine Breza Boucher. We'll be keeping a very keen eye on the swing between her and Francisca Preuss, and of course any of the others who, if either of those falter, find themselves in the running.
Yeah, when it's so accurate like that, you can afford to have some breathing issues or a trigger pressure issue that gives you a couple millimeters of error, and you can still afford that because you still are shooting so centrally. And Minkinen, she knows about coming to her results in the later stages of her career.
And such fine form this season.
So much experience and control. Lovely recocking of the rifle. Barely any movement in the position. Oh, that's just beautiful shooting there from Minkinen. 5 out of 5, 31.4 seconds to do it.
Just coming in slightly off the pace though with Suvi Minkinen. And essentially more reserved start to this race. She leaves shooting 21.5 seconds down in 7th.
Hauser, 11.9 upon entering the range. That's around the same time that Richard and Michelon are skiing. But very, very quick to get the first shot down. 11.6 seconds and 3 good hits to follow. Until I spoke, and then the target didn't go down. The final one does. 4 out of 5 for Lisa Theresa Hauser.
And she becomes just the 4th athlete to leave shooting 1 without a perfect record. Justine Brassard-Boucher coming in for her first standing shoot. This is shooting 2 for bib number 1.
Oh, and it's such an edge shot. She got lucky in both the first and second shot that the targets even went down. But they went down.
She's quick. She is quick though, Scott. Look at that. She's done enough.
Oh, I mean, there's so much luck there, but also skill, because when you are accurate and the misses do come, or the edge shots come, then you're on the good side of history when it just trickles down.
So setting the early pace. 10 out of 10 so far for Justine Brassard-Boucher, but Scott, the images there as you see how far her skis sink into the soft snow. Alan Chikaida shooting 1.
A big miss now out to the right-hand side. The rest of them just tucking into the right side of the prone target, very, very close to the edge. And wow, it's accurate shooting in the sense that the grouping was fantastic. 35 seconds to do it, but then that one shot on the right-hand side, meaning her coaches need to get that information to her that she is zeroed completely wrong for the conditions.
Slotting in 13th. Scott, when you have a miss on the first and you know that you've got to come back for 3 more visits and you likely have to be perfect to win, how hard is it to keep those thoughts out your head?
It's impossible. The thoughts are going to come into your mind, and these biathletes do think about it, but it's how they cope with it, as Julia Simon now is going to be thinking about the process, the breathing routine between every shot, being stable, the trigger pressure, trying to think about as few things as possible as these 5 targets go down as if so easily by Julia Simon.
Simon, of course, the new individual world champion. Round in Lenzerheide, and had a brilliant World Championships. 5th for now, a slightly reserved start, Scott, you have to say, on the skis. When you look at the pace and the prowess that Simon holds in that department.
I think it's sensible. Pacing it slowly and controlled in these conditions is wise, and it will be returned later on when your legs are tired. And 3.5 seconds between the first and second shot, 4.5 to the third. It's quite inconsistent shooting there from Richard. That's 4 out of 5 and not an ideal shoot, quite unstable in terms of the process.
5 out of 5 though for Franziska Preuss, who will see her come out of shooting 1. I think it will be just outside the top 3, 5th for Franziska Preuss. She's 9.5 seconds off the pace, and crucially today we'll be looking at the swing between her and Lou Jean-Monod in the battle for the individual globe.
Oh, that's lovely shooting. Great there from Michelin, 5 out of 5. She just seems to find it easy on the range. At least that's the way it looks. And her teammate, Richard, going to be skiing alongside Preuss. They have the advantage of being able to work together over the course of the remaining laps. That can certainly help in these time trial events. But Michelin setting a good time out of shoot 2, 10.9 behind Brassard-Boucher. And slotting in between Brassard-Boucher and Richard.
Climbing 10 places in the pursuit. Novemia Stokes to find herself on her first World Cup podium. We're back with Selina Glotier.
And the magazine drills that you just saw there have been practiced thousands and thousands of times for efficiency. And look at that edge shot. It was so on the edge, and yet the target still went down. Four out of 5.
10 on the first 2 visits for Selena Glottier. As in comes Lou Jean Monod.
And she seems to find the stand shooting easy. At least that's the appearance when looking from the outside. But to make the targets go down as easily as they appear, it's all about a consistent process. The same breathing between shots, but there's the first miss from Lou Jean Monod, and quite an uncommon one, the first in stand for her entire season in the individual. Well, that was a strange order of shooting as well in terms of which target she aimed at.
Ingrid Landmark-Tandervold, though, coming in 6.4 seconds in the lead, and she's 5 for 5.
Great shooting from Landmark-Tandervold there. It's good to see her back on top, back in form.
And she'll slot in just 0.3 of a second, coming out of shooting 1 behind Justine Brassard-Boucher. Well, you have to say, Scott, Nové Město, such a roller coaster for Tandervold, leading out the pursuit after winning in the sprint. That didn't go her way by any means, but still, she takes so much encouragement from the sprint result. The Ukrainian men's relay team opted to share their Biathlete of the Week award with her, as citing everything that she'd gone through as inspirations and wanting to share the love, which was a really nice touch.
It was, and it was well deserved as well. We all know Tandervold has been through a lot of challenge in order to have achieved that result, and it just makes it ever more rewarding when it comes.
So Sophie Minkkinen clean in the prone position, but still coming in 53.1 seconds down.
I think that's a testament to the ski speed. It's not just about the strategy, but about the pacing as well, and the form. Great shooting form, as we saw for the first 4 of those 5, until I spoke again, but the last shot didn't go down.
It was a quick first kilometre for Hannah Öberg, but slowing things down as she came into the range. 2.6 seconds behind Brassard-Boucher. This is her first shoot.
And Hannah Öberg, she certainly is capable of winning today. Shooting very quickly, but looking controlled. That's 5 out of 5 for Hannah Öberg. Fantastic start for the Swede, and she could be returning to her top form.
In comes Justine Brassard-Boucher. Shooting 3, alternating between prone and standing for this short individual for the women.
And a miss on the low left of the target. Another one that's on the left-hand side. She really needs this last shot. And she gets it. Good shooting, but unfortunate with that first miss that was on the low left. We can see that the wind having an impact, because so many of these top shooters are grouping fantastically, but the group is moving inconsistently left and right.
Malin Čekáda, 1 miss in the prone. This is her first standing.
And an edge shot. Just a fraction of the actual lead bullet hitting the target, but enough for the sensors to call it a hit, and that's 5 out of 5 in the stand, 9 out of 10 for Malin Čekáda.
Maria Lampic coming into shooting 1, 5.2 seconds down.
And Lampic on home soil, or snow, which is becoming soil as the rain is falling. But she has the ski speed. 4th fastest at the World Championships.
A miss for Lampic, though, as someone who has the shooting speed and accuracy. Julia Simon, who's away in the stand, 5 for 5.
4 out of 5. It's an okay start for Lampic. She is going to need to hit a great many of the remaining targets, if not all.
Julia Simon coming out of the range in third, 26.8 seconds behind Brassard Boucher. Further down the road, though, of course, Brassard Boucher has a miss from her penultimate visit to the range. Here's Franziska Preuss.
She will be struggling with the pressure, knowing that so much is at stake for her and the need for the targets to go down. It's a good start. 3 out of 3 for Preuss.
Very good start indeed. 10 out of 10 for Franziska Preuss.
Amazing.
Here's Jean Richard. On this, finds herself 80 seconds down now.
A long delay to get that final shot down, but 5 go down for Richard in her second prone visit.
Preuss going into third, and well, you can see Lou Jean Monod well down the order there, owing to her miss.
And skiing well relative to Richard. They came out of the range together, and you can see now the gap that's come between them. So Preuss, she is certainly out there to defend her title.
And also, of course, challenge for the discipline globe. Another miss for Ida Lien.
The support staff around the track are responsible for giving information about where the shots land for these biathletes. Ida Lien will have learned about how close some of her first shots were to the edge and then was able to respond, but skiing very well. That one miss, though, adding 1 minute or 45 seconds to her time. The 2 misses, 1 minute and 30 seconds in total. But she is skiing the fastest today, course time wise. That's on lap 2 and lap 3. The fastest ahead of Brassard Boucher, Michelon, Jean Monod, with only Tandrevold skiing faster on lap 1. Now, Selina Grotian of Germany, she's missed 1 in the stand, adding 45 seconds. And now she has making some adjustments there to her sights. The wind conditions, of course, giving cause to do so. She's making more adjustments. That's 1 click left, followed by 2 clicks right, if I saw correctly. So it seems like the wind conditions are changing a lot, and as a result, Grotian having several misses, 2 misses from 5, not good from Selina Grotian, and it took a long time to get the shots down.
Jean Monod, 1 miss next to her name. Just her first miss in individual competition on the World Cup this season.
Her whole body moving when she recocks in the prone. Quite unconventional for such a good shooter. And that's 5 out of 5, 14 out of 15 for Lou Jean Monod. It's a good start.
Yep, very good indeed. She'll want to keep that limited to just 1 miss. She comes out in third, and well, that is important for the swing of points. At shooting 2, not enough yet to see Franziska Preuss go ahead of Jean Monod and then limiting the damage further down the course. Jean Monod looking to grab that first individual, first solo crystal globe of the season. Sophia Schneider now.
4 French at the top as they exit shooting 3. Schneider with her first shot going wide. She's already down on ski speed, so every miss just adding to her deficit. reset that. There was a long pause between the fourth and fifth shot, and she needed to rebreathe and reset, but you saw she didn't. She just tried to get the shot down regardless of her physical condition.
Stevie Minkkinen leading the train of athletes into the range as we go back to Hannah Öberg.
"16 seconds off the pace on the skis, but so far hitting all the targets." That's 10 out of 10 for Hannah Öberg.
When you can still see the minus next to the time ticking past, I think it will just slip away from her, but she won't be far off the lead here.
Yeah, putting
Let's take a look at the time. Brassard-Boucher currently in the lead out of shooting 2, and she will hold on to that. Hannah Öberg going into second though, Scott, 2.4 seconds behind.
Well, she's in such great skiing form as Hannah Öberg, and I think we can expect to see her just pacing today sensibly. Justine Brassard-Boucher misses the first of her last 5 in stand. Critical miss. Getting the rest so far. 4 out of 5 on her final visit. 0-0-1-1 for Justine Brassard-Boucher.
It will only be 18 out of 20. Will it be enough for the podium? She's had the task of setting the early pace, bib number 1.
And 32 minutes and 34 seconds, a time that is going to be fiercely fought, and with the likes of Jean-Menot, Richard, Michelon, and in fact everybody else on the entire start list behind her yet to come, we can expect to see that falling down the order.
This is shooting 3 now for Malin Shekaida, who had 1 miss in her first visit to the range in prone.
And she's getting faster with each lap, suggesting to me that her form is gradually improving, or that she has paced herself a little bit slower on lap 1 with the intention of speeding it up. But an edge shot, top left for her first shot away. The next one, again, not easily seen because it did go into the middle of the target. But 5 out of 5 nonetheless.
14 out of 15, Malin Shekaida back on track. As away goes Julia Simon with another perfect 5, 15 out of 15. It won't be enough to take the lead at shooting 3 from Oceane Michelon at this point, but she will slot into second, 14 seconds off the pace and ahead of Justine Brassard-Boucher, who has 1 miss.
And I can't get enough of talking about it. Outside of shooting 3, France is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. With Richard, the slowest of the French. Only Ida Lien of Norway is in 6th place, the 6th fastest time outside of shooting 3.
And side by side, in comes the blue bib of Jean Richard and the yellow bib of Franziska Preuss, both at different stages of their competition, of course. Franziska Preuss dropping down into the prone position.
Making adjustments there, 3 clicks to the right on her sights, meaning the wind is now changed. Whether it's dropped off or increased is unknown. But a bold and decisive 3 clicks it was, and so far it's paying off for the German. 4 out of 5 for Franziska Preuss. She gets 5 out of 5. That's 15 out of 15 for the German.
Perfect for Preuss, a miss, now 2 for Oceane Michelon. Remember, just was 45 seconds added on to the race time for every miss in this short individual.
And now Michelon for her final lap. She is going to be chasing down Brassard-Boucher's time, but also physically on the skis, Preuss, who is just ahead of her. Painful moment there for Michelon. So much momentum carried into this race, and for Ida Lien, she's been skiing so well today, great form, but another miss added to her total penalty time. Heidenberg gets 4 out of 5, and that's after having hit the perfect 10 out of 10 in the prone and stand the first 2 visits to the range. So 14 out of 15, it's not bad at all for the Swede.
Just inside a minute off the pace of Ocean Michelon. Puts her into 5th at shooting 3, just ahead of Lou Jean Monod.
So now the misses are beginning to tally up. It shows that the conditions are changing. We've seen a lot of clicking on the site, indicating wind conditions are not the same that they were in the Zero, and Tandrevold now is going to have to contend with those changing conditions. And we know she struggles with the stand shooting, but Lou Jean Monod.
Yep, in for her final shoot.
A massive pressure moment. She knows it. She's been here before plenty times.
Chasing the individual discipline globe.
Four seconds between the first and second shot, 3.6 thereafter. It's consistent, it's getting faster.
Almost the lead for Lou Jean Monod. But a perfect example of it ticking away from her there. The time added on. She was well in the green. And now she'll have a lot of work to do on the skis.
And Price has not missed a target today, so this is high-stake moment for Lou Jean Monod.
For Lou Jean Monod to lose the discipline, but by my workings, Price needs to win and Lou Jean Monod needs to fall outside of the top 8. With, of course, the new point system that came in this season. We will, of course, keep our eyes on it. She needs to really throw down a big final lap here to make sure that red bib and the crystal globe does not slip away from her.
Well, all of the French biathletes at the top leaving chute 4. That's Michelon winning, Breza Boucher second, Jean Monod third, Richard fourth. But they've all missed 2 targets. And we didn't see it, but Tandrevold missed 3 in her stand, so following once again her pattern of struggling to get the stand targets down. On the other hand, Hannah Öberg, she certainly doesn't struggle in prone or in stand. She's got a fantastic shooting rate.
And we'll come back to her shoot as there we can see her now in the breakout screen as Justine Bressard-Boucher coming towards the line. Bib number 1, 18 out of 20 today. She will set the early pace. Hannah Öberg, another 5-5.
This could be a really great day for Hannah Öberg. She's skiing well and she's shooting well. She's come out what looks to be in the lead, 4.5 seconds ahead of Michelon.
Well, after finishing on the podium as a solo athlete for the first time this season in Novo Mesto, she's going for her first win. And after shooting 3, as you rightly say, Scott, leading by 4.5 seconds, Justine Bressard-Boucher has done her bit.
And ahead of Price by 38.1 seconds, both of them having not missed a target, but with Price skiing a whole penalty slower than the Swede, Hannah Öberg really does look set up well to do well today.
Brilliant shooting from Suvi Minkkinen, Scott, limiting it to just 1 miss on the day, 19 out of 20, and well, that final shoot was really something special to watch.
Yeah, wonderful shooting, fast shooting, and the wind flags you can see are blowing, and that having a big impact on the round, but also the physical stance of these biathletes as they try and stand steady despite the blustering winds.
Coming out of the shooting 4, she finds herself down in 6th. It will be unlikely to be enough for a flower ceremony today, though, for Suvi Minkkinen. She'll keep her eyes on a top 10 finish, though. Here is Julia Simon, who's perfect so far, looking to go 20 out of 20, just 19.6 seconds off the pace coming in.
It's fast, it's decisive, there's an edge, but she doesn't seem to care or even notice, because 20 out of 20 is in her grasp. Wonderful shooting from Julia Simon.
A huge smile on her face as she pulled the glasses down. She loves to entertain, and Julia Simon will take the lead by a huge margin here. The individual world champion going for gold once again.
And done with such confidence and such style. She just let the shots go off. And yes, there was one edge shot, and it was a lucky hit, but a hit it was.
Ocean Michelon and Jean Richard coming towards the finish line, with Michelon just ever so slightly in the lead. 2 misses on the day. She's across the line in the lead by 12.5 seconds, but just how long will that stand for? Julia Simon flying behind, and perfect shooting. Jean Richard drops into third, and Franziska Preuss as well. Clean so far. Here she is, her final visit to the range. Can she hit 20 out of 20?
She needs to hit every single one of these shots if she wants a victory today. It's a very good start. Can she do it? Last shot. She does. 20 out of 20 for Franziska Preuss. Amazing discipline despite the stakes, but now she needs to find something on the skis.
Yep, perfection for Preuss. As we go back to the finish line, Ida Lien of Norway coming in 17 out of 20, 3 misses, only 1 clean visit to the range, and 68.9 seconds off the pace of Ocean Michelon. She slots into 4th for now.
And Preuss, she's skiing about 15 seconds slower on every single lap, meaning that that's over an entire miss slower than some of her closest rivals, and Hannah Öberg looking to be one such closest rival today.
Yeah, 30.5 seconds behind Julia Simon when she left shooting 4. Anna Caroline Heidenberg.
71% hit rate in stand. It's not her favoured shooting position, but look at that. That was a 10 right in the centre hit, followed by an edge shot, which was lucky to have gone down. But good shooting there, 19 out of 20 from Heidenberg.
Selina Glottian of Germany trying to secure a top 10 finish. Three misses on the day. She will go into the top 5 for now. Very unlikely to see that time stand for anything more than a top 10.
Such a challenging day with the French being on such formidable form. As we turn to Lou Jean Monod.
18 out of 20 for Lou Jean Monod. Into third. Will it be enough for a podium today? With so many rallying behind, it looks unlikely. Has she done enough to secure herself the discipline globe? It would be just the second of her career on the World Cup. She's done all she can for now.
It's such a challenging moment for these biathletes after the World Championships, trimester 3, it's raining. Tandra Vold, we can see she's struggling in the stands, having done very well in both her prone shoots. Out to Gasparin, recovers well, with Tandra Vold getting 4 out of 5, but a little too late for the Norwegian.
Yep, 3 misses for Aita Gasparin over the course of the race, and she exits shooting 4. Just inside the top 10.
Now, interestingly, Tandra Vold started with the fastest course time and then dropped down to 6th place, then to 14th place, 20 seconds down on lap 3, and then 10 seconds down on lap 4. That suggests to me her form hasn't carried from Novo Mesto, but she tried to maintain her leading spirit, and as a result perhaps went a little too fast at the beginning of the race.
Well, we spoke about the pacing a lot early on, didn't we? And I think we even brought up the fact that Julia Simon looked like she'd started very slowly indeed. Yeah. She's leading all the way through now to the 11.6 kilometre mark with clean shooting. Yeah. Maybe part of Chandravol's struggles today just down to the pacing.
Absolutely, and Julia Simon was 24 seconds off the lead time on lap 1, but every single lap thereafter has climbed only a little on lap 2, but then lap 3 she opened it up. Lap 4 was super fast, and I suspect she will have the fastest lap time on the final lap of this 5-lap race.
Because of course, Scott, as well, when we talk about the pacing on the skis, so crucial as well for the tiredness levels, the exertion when you come into the range. Here is Hannah Öberg, who, well, is shooting for the win here.
There's a pause.
Oh, and
she doesn't get it. Oh, painful to watch. You could see the thoughts going through her mind on that last shot. She hesitated, and all of a sudden, the knowledge that she could get the win and the 20 today came into her mind, and she took that few too many seconds to get under control.
Well, such disappointment for Hannah Öberg. It might still be enough for a podium today. Coming out to shooting 4 in third, but 40.2 seconds down, and with 45 seconds added to your race time for a miss, you can see that it would have been a 5-second lead there or thereabouts for Hannah Öberg had she hit all 20. Also a 1990-20 record for Suvi Minkinen, across the line in 8th. But here is the world champion, and surely with Hannah Öberg dropping 1 in the final visit to the range, it will be enough for a significant win today for Julia Simon, backing up her world title. A lead of 66.9 seconds. Julia Simon across the line on top spot. And Scott, it's going to be very hard for anyone to challenge that.
It was almost the perfect race, super disciplined. She got faster with each lap. 55 seconds down on ski speed though, behind Ida Lien in total.
And particularly as the conditions get worse and worse throughout the course of the day, challenging for those athletes who are starting in the later bibs to challenge that, even with perfect shooting. But it is so far only Julia Simon and Franziska Preuss who, after shooting 4, have a perfect record.
And Lampic now shooting in front of her home audience, misses 3 in her final 5 stand, but that's a total of 7 targets. Struggling to get the shooting down to have a consistent rhythm, with the occasional good shoot punctuated by so many misses.
Yeah, it's exactly right, Scott, what you say there. The occasional good shoot, we see these glimmers where she has so much potential to get that balance right between the skiing and the shooting, and then it disappears for a few races. We saw in Annecy-le-Grand-Bornand, of course, taking that podium. Here is Franziska Preuss, though, a perfect 20 out of 20, but doesn't have the ski speed today to challenge Julia Simon by any margin.
She has Heidenberg on her heels, she has Öberg on her heels, the 2 Swedes wanting to depose her.
And across the line, the yellow bib, 46.2 seconds behind Julia Simon, but crucially well ahead of Lujan Minot, which will help her cause for the overall Crystal Globe. And there you can see the updated points total there. Franziska Preuss going over 1,000 points, and that will help her cause significantly today, Scott.
For sure it will, and the wonderful 20 out of 20. It's so hard to achieve 20 out of 20, and to have done that when the pressure was fully on her shoulders I think is super impressive, and especially in tough shooting conditions. She made a pretty bold adjustment to her sights and hit all 5 in the second visit in prone. That's after having clicked. So disciplined shooting, and the targets went down.
We're trying to depose her, but won't have enough is Heidenberg.
Skipping there because the track is so broken up. 1 minute and 4 seconds back for Heidenberg. Third place so far.
Well, a brilliant example, Scott, that of those who, even though she's only wearing bib 24, what those further down the order are having to contend with. Just one miss on the day, across the line in third, but with Hannah Erberg behind, unlikely to be enough for a podium today for Anna-Karin Heidenberg, but likely a very big personal best. Personal best of 14 set in the short individual in Kontiolahti. It's looking like this is a discipline that, although rarely used, the short version of the individual is something that she thrives in. Here's Lena Haki-Gross. .8 seconds to get the first shot down, and as I say it, 3 following quick succession, with that miss on the 4th. Followed by a good hit, taking 3 seconds to get it for the final shot. But 25.4 seconds is a pretty stable shoot for Lena Haki-Gross. And with the wind conditions not being too tricky, it's not bad shooting of a sequence of 20 shots. Maite Gasperlein coming towards the finish line, looking to squeeze her way into the top 10, and she will do enough. It'd be interesting, Scott, to keep her eyes just on that part of the course there and see how many athletes sort of are forced to the other side and don't go as central with that course being teared up. She's in 10th for now. Maite Gasperlein owing to 3 misses on the day, just outside 3 minutes off the pace of Julia Simon.
It's interesting that the biathletes are not collapsing onto their stomach as they come across the line, but there's 2 reasons for that. The first is that it's a downhill finish, so they're less fatigued than usual. But the second reason is actually because it's a swimming pool out there. Nobody wants to go swimming at the end of having done an individual.
Better bring your goggles. Anthony Gigono with goggles jokingly in Annecy Le Grand Bonnard, but really this is where you need to pack them for a miss for Milena Todorova. That's now 2 and 3 on the day.
Now, she's really struggling. The wind did pick up. You saw it blustering through her bib, but 3 misses at the final time of asking is extremely painful. 2 minutes and 15 seconds just added onto her time in the course of 10 seconds. It's brutal.
Here's Hannah Erberg, pushing for her second solo podium of the season. Will be followed in by her teammate Ella Halvorsen, but it is Hannah Erberg who we have eyes on to disrupt the podium here, and she will take second. 19 out of 20 and a big final lap, Scott, to push Franziska Preuss down.
A very good final lap, and that's one of the benefits of insight. She will have known exactly where she compared against Preuss, knowing that she came out of the range 5 seconds down, and then at the 11.9 kilometer mark, being 6 seconds ahead, she knew that her trajectory was good and she had to maintain that fast pace that she was putting down on the final lap.
And she can be very happy with that indeed. She, at 11.1 kilometers, she was 5 seconds behind Franziska Preuss, and a huge, well, last kilometre and almost a half, so it really turned things around, and will be on the second step of the podium once again.
It's not an easy day to get 19 out of 20, 20 out of 20. Simon and Preuss, of course, having hit the perfect 20 out of 20 today.
And no one's hanging around, are they? Usually we see a number of the athletes just take their time behind the finish line before they go and have their rifles and skis removed. No one is waiting around today. It's straight off the course and to try and get warm and dry.
Yeah.
Jessica Hyslova. coming in for shooting 3. And we get to that point in the race with plenty of the favourites having come through. We get to focus our attentions further down the field. Perfect so far, the Czech athlete.
It's a great opportunity to see how the biathletes who don't get much screen time perform in the shooting range. And now with Hislova having done the perfect 14 out of 14, she manages to get the perfect 15 out of 15, and in good time too, 32.9 seconds in her second visit to prone.
And she'll come out of the range comfortably in the top 20. 2 minutes and 3 seconds behind the pace of the leader. Here's Anna Magnusson. Perfect so far. Continues that form. Oh,
that
another 20 out of 20.
Absolutely perfect. Well done to Anna Magnusson, holding it together. She's a fantastic shot.
That's so good that the cameraman dropped the camera there. Perfect 20 out of 20, and well, she'll be looking to find enough to keep her in the top 10. And could that push Lou Jean Monod further down? It'll be interesting to keep our eyes on how that affects the results at the finish line, because crucially, with Preuss finishing so high, Lou Jean Monod really needs to stay inside the top 10 to take the discipline globe.
Yeah, and 1 minute and 42 seconds back, placing her well within the top 10. As you say, it's for Anna Magnusson now just a challenge to find every single bit of track that is not torn up and ski there, because when it's torn up, it makes every kick with the legs, every plant with the poles, just that little bit more fatiguing and less effective. The hard parts of the track, of course, where is optimally, or the optimal parts of the track is where it's hardest. Anna Magnusson training under Wolfgang Pichler for many years, and was always one of the best shooters in training with Fredrik Lindström, barely ever missing targets throughout entire summer training periods. A natural ability to shoot. And that's supplemented by a huge amount of work, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of rounds fired. Sometimes as many as 30,000 in 1 year for some of these biathletes. And you can just see now on the track the total destruction to the surface of the snow. In the center where their feet are, just beneath there, it's compacted, but at the tips of the skis, it's slushy and deep. Horrible skiing conditions, but like we said, also very exciting skiing conditions.
So here are the intermediate results. An excellent day for Julia Simon, once again the individual world champion, taking gold here in Pokljuka. Hannah Öberg with an exceptional final lap, 19 out of 20 on the day. And that's enough to beat Franziska Preuss to the silver medal. The yellow bib sat in third, perfect shooting, but just falling behind Öberg on the ski speed. In terms of the discipline globe so far, Franziska Preuss will be on 200 points, with, if it stays this way, Lou Jean Monod in 7th on 216. We'll just look into how far Lou Jean Monod can afford to fall down the order, with Franziska Preuss securing that silver, because of course, as we've seen, or the bronze even, with Franziska, with those further down, including Anna Magnusson, trying to push Lou Jean Monod further down the order.
Shima there crossing the line with 19 out of 20. You've got to feel sorry for bib number 53 to hit 95% today, but with the start order so far down, suffering from the disruption of the tracks. Gasparin there, 18 out of 20, another example of fantastic shooting.
Let's correct myself, 185 points for Franziska Preuss, as Michaela Kralala falls away from the mat with 3 misses on the day. Perfect perfect in the prone, just struggling in the standing with her 3 misses coming in the 2 standing shoots.
You know, it's so interesting looking at the analysis that Lampic is 9.9 seconds down on cumulative course time, suggesting to me that she can afford to slow down a little bit and get some of the targets down, be a little bit more controlled in the shooting range, because she doesn't need to ski that fast. And perhaps seeing herself on the skiing overall course time near the top is part of her accomplishment, but at the end of the day, it's the finishing time that matters most.
You wonder whether, as her compatriot, Helena Finch, with now 2 misses in her second prone visit, you wonder if that podium in on C will help her maybe realise that she'll go away at the end of the season, over summer, try and find that balance, because until then she hadn't finished on the podium. She got the balance right on that day, and maybe mentally that reward, standing on the podium, accepting the bronze medal there, will help her actually think, all right, going forward, if that's the target, we need to have more balance.
Well, Lampic with 53% hit rate in stand, it's just so far away from being good enough that if I was her coach, I would say, let's not even ski for an entire 2 months. Let's just do stand shooting and let's fix that, because she would have a net benefit in performance if she didn't ski at all and suffered the loss of time on ski speed and learned how, like Anna Magnusson, to hit the targets.
A good look at the more technical terms of the course there, as we keep our eyes on Anna Magnusson, bib 47. You can see her there just emerging into your picture. That's 11.9 kilometres, and well, the time of Lucia Montmagno will go past.
A fantastic day for Magnusson, but you can see the cost of her lap time getting slower and slower. But a top 10 still for the Swede. She's receiving all the support and information from her coaches. From this point now, there's a bit of undulation, but it's up and down, but most of the hard work has already been done. And for Magnusson now, it's just a case of protecting those seconds into the finish, with Kirkeide of Norway only 4 seconds behind her at the last checkpoint we passed.
And the rain continuing to fall here amongst the pine trees in Pokljuka. Perfect on the day though, Anna Magnusson falling outside of the flower ceremony though.
Her teammates have skied well, so that gives us good reason to believe that her skis are running fast. But this downhill section is going to tell us a lot as to whether she's managed to stay ahead of Kirkeide of Norway.
Featured a huge amount in the top 10 this season, but did in the pursuit in Lenzerheide, climbing from 20th up into 7th and fighting her way across the line. Enough for 8th for now. Ahead of Malin Kirkeide by 5 seconds.
And Hislova misses the last shot. It was 15 out of 15 up until that point. But then, well, 19 out of 20. And then the final shot is cruel in the individual to miss that one.
Well, we see it happen so many times, Scott, and particularly today we're seeing that last one just not go down. And how much of that is a mental challenge rather than more of a physical one?
So much, not entirely, because sometimes, as we've seen in many of the previous races, some of the top biathletes in the world doing little squats because their legs are so tired, battered by these snow conditions, and then they have to suffer through shaking legs. But in the absence of shaking legs, in the absence of wind, and just the silence of the mind, there is so much psychology going on that can completely undermine your shooting. And Fem Steinvik, with good shooting and skiing till now, is going to be contending with those thoughts right now.
You have to feel for Ragnhild Fem Steinvik. far down the order. The course getting more and more torn up. There's a second miss on the day for her.
18 out of 20. It's tough. But Femstanovic, she's had some really good results recently, particularly on her ski form, so it's a little surprising to see her start so far down, until you, of course, look at Tandrevold skiing one of the fastest on the day, Liane skiing very well, Kirkeide also. So the Norwegian women's team, they're really picking it up in terms of their skiing form.
Alexandra Kushina of Ukraine. That brilliant moment last week in Nowe Miesto where Julia Simon sat behind her, allowing Ukraine to finish the race and not be pulled for being lapped. 3 misses now.
Only 3 biathletes today so far across the line with the perfect 20 out of 20. And we saw as Magnusson came across the line, and Merkushnia now, as she's coming outside of chute number 3, the track being as beat up as it is, forcing the biathletes to go into the skate 1 condition or technique earlier than you would optimally do if the conditions were better.
Julia Zima, 19 out of 20, across the line in 12.
So the biathletes can stay on their feet when they want to as they cross the line. It's just so much more comfortable to sprawl out on the floor and enjoy a few moments of peace after suffering as much as they do.
Jana Poof down in bib 69, the European champion in this discipline. Shot 20 out of 20 in Lenzerheide at the Worlds, but 2 misses Scott in the standing, looking to make up for it now, and she will do indeed. 18 out of 20 and a really solid final shoot there.
Yeah, that's fantastic from Poof. She's had a really great European Championships. She didn't miss a single target in any of the races until the relay, when she had to use a spare round. But that was in the sprint, pursuit, and individual across 50 shots, no targets missed. So a very talented shooter, and the Germans will be looking at her ability to think, okay, we need to work out how to make her faster on the skis. But the 22-year-old, of course, has plenty of time to make those gains. Olena Horodna of Ukraine has hit 15 out of 15 and now stands to be the 4th person of the day to get the perfect 5th person of the day, excuse me. 19 out of 20 so far. She gets the final shot. That's fantastic shooting from Horodna.
Well, always great to immediately cut to the coach's expression, and you could see the Ukrainian coach getting far too excited and then remembering that he has to radio around the course. But a brilliant moment for Olena Horodna, who just finds herself outside of the top 10, and a solid final lap here with Jean Richard sat just 4 seconds ahead of her. Could see her go into 10th. Which would be, Scott, you have to say, a brilliant performance considering that she started so far back, and she has a personal best of 49th in the sprint from Ostersund or from Antholz even this year, and this is a huge step up from the Ukrainian youngster.
Absolutely, 20 years of age, plenty of time to improve, and with an ability to get 20 out of 20. That just foreshadows some great results to come. But take a look at her left ski as it sinks into those deep grooves, meaning that every single push from the legs are so much more punished relative to Breza Boucher, who got to cut the early track. And the times are severely distorted as a result of these tracks being so in such poor condition.
Once again, in the men's event, as Holodner takes on some fluids there, we will have the alternative start group system, which of course we've seen for the 2 races in Nowe Miasto and again for the women's short individual. But Scott, when you look at that, this course is going to be so torn up by the time we even get to the first male athlete of the day.
It is, and that creates a certain amount of almost fairness, but you would like to think that the track can be treated to some degree. The only risk with treating the track is that often leads to further melting of it, or net melting, and they have a whole weekend of races to go through, as Chloe Levens is shooting very well. Pauses for the final shot, but it's a miss. 17 out of 20 for Levens.
We'll find herself outside of the top half of the order today. 103 athletes entered. We had 8 DNSs. Helena Holodner keeping her eyes on that top 10, and the times will go past. It should still be enough as she comes up this climb, maybe to sit just outside in 11th. That time goes past as well. Scott, it is so hard for these athletes anyway on the final lap. It's such a physically demanding, undulating course, as you mentioned, but then to have to contend with these conditions, and also particularly if you're from the smaller nations as well, who don't have the same wax setup as some of those who are competing at the top end.
Absolutely. The unfairness, I guess, is the easiest way to put it, of the start order is a reality of the sport. That is that the IBU, of course, does their best to equalize to as much a degree as possible, but fundamentally they try to make it as reasonable for the top athletes to contend for the Crystal Globes, the overalls, by not having too much time between them. Otherwise, if, for example, Preuss started bib 70 today and Simon started bib 1, it just isn't fair.
Anna Juppe replacing Anna Gandler for this stage of the World Cup, who's returned to Austria due to illness.
It was a good first half of the race for Juppe with 10 out of 10, but then 7 out of 10 for her final 10 shots. And so interesting on a range like this, with the electronic targets being sometimes more sensitive to hits than mechanical targets. Mechanical targets, of course, relying on the impact of the round to push it over. And sometimes a hit at the bottom of the target doesn't, or an edge shot at the bottom of the target, doesn't have the same amount of force as an edge shot at the top of the target because of the leverage. Whereas mechanical targets sense the lead at a certain pressure, and as we saw so many times today, edge shots being factored in as hits.
Particularly in the latter stages of this race as well, opportunities now, the revolving doors of the range have started to ease in terms of the busyness slightly, to take a wider look at the course, Scott. And we saw in Nowe Miasto that there was some points where there was quicker, better conditions around the course, particularly those in shade, but really here it's kind of, to the eye, looks like very similar conditions throughout.
For sure, I think the conditions are equally destroyed. The downhill sections appear to be safe. That's an important factor. That's what the IBU will be looking at. Is this course safe? And yes, it certainly appears to be. But in terms of the pain these biathletes have to endure, it's cruel, but part of what they train for.
Holodna being urged on. Sat in 13th as things stand, and this will be a really huge step up for the Ukrainian. A new high water mark, her best coming this season in the sprint in Antholz, 49th. And this really would be a huge step up to 7th in the World Juniors individual after finishing 4th in the sprint. So, you know, Scott, the talent is already very evident to see when you look at the junior level, but to make such a big step up after the junior champs would be very impressive.
Sometimes that sequence of races all packed together can lead to good form, as we see Marte Kraksag Johansson get 19 out of 20 in very good pace, but has of course bib number 85 and therefore a lot of very broken up snow to ski through, but good shooting from the Norwegian. So painful for some of the biathletes to see the start order change, but also can relieve the pressure. Holodna now fighting for her final 100 meters.
She will fall outside of the top 10, but it will be a brilliant performance from the 20-year-old Ukrainian, who takes a quick look to the side, and she's over the line in 13th. An incredible performance, her personal best prior to today, 49th in a sprint in Antholz, and a huge step up, and one that she can be, particularly starting bib 71 in really challenging conditions. Very proud of indeed. One of a few athletes, just a handful, who have shot a perfect 20 today.
Zima in 12th, Holodna 13th, and Dimitrenko in 18th. The Ukrainians having a good day today on the shooting range. Amongst the three of them, only missing 2 targets of 60.
I was just looking at that. That is a brilliant record to hold, particularly when you look at those who have a number of misses ahead of them. Remanova with 104, but shooting 3 now, so still a long way to go for the Slovakian in her race. 1 miss from each visit so far.
Sweden, of their 120 shots today as a team, hitting 109 of the targets. So a good day for the Swedes from their 6 starters, with Halvarsson hitting 20 out of 20 at the World Championships, now 48th place, having missed 3 today.
Yeah, she could have found herself as one of the athletes to challenge for the Crystal Globe if something had gone wrong with the 2 ahead of her, but challenging conditions today, and not hitting the standards that we potentially come to expect from her after that brilliant medal at the World Championships.
Good shooting there from Klementic, and that last shot, she may have known it, was an edge shot, only just going down.
So we can take another look at the results, with the majority of the action, particularly when it came to those finishing in the top 10, coming very early on in this race because of the alternate start groups being used today because of the weather. 78 athletes across the line of the 104, with a number of DNSs as well today. Julia Simon taking victory, perfect shooting, 20 out of 20 to secure gold here in Pokljuka. Hannah Urberg with 1 miss and enough for the silver medal, owing to a really solid final lap to push herself ahead of Franziska Preuss. And Lou Jean-Monod doing enough to secure the individual Crystal Globe. second discipline globe of her career after winning the mass start last season. She finished down in 7th, just outside of the flower ceremony. Well, Scott, taking a look back at the race of Franziska Preuss, the yellow bib, who, with her performance today, not enough to take the small discipline globe, but certainly has done herself a lot of favours when trying to hang on to that yellow bib.
Absolutely, and a perfect shoot, and she obviously tried as best she could on the skis. So a perfect race for Preuss, and hopefully foreshadowing of more great racing from her to come.
Yeah, really solid bounce back from Nové Město. Both Hannah Öberg and Julia Simon continuing their good form from last week on the World Cup, with Julia Simon a perfect race and one that gave her quite an impressive lead over Hannah Öberg. 39.1 seconds the difference. Of course, we still have athletes out there, but this more than set as the top 3.
So many victories for Simon this season. But actually, surprisingly, her stand shooting only at 82%, relying often on her impeccable ski speed, which has actually, on average, gotten slower since 2023.
And actually, when you look at the victories that she's had this season, her season really changed during the World Championships, and has more than found herself back on track. And one of the things that I was speaking about at the World Championships was just how she would end the season based off the fact that she had such a good World Championships, and she's really continued that flow. She spoke about, Scott, just the fact that she needed to find a new focus. The day before the individual competition, where of course she took the world title, she spoke to her coach, and they gave her a new purpose and a new vision, and it really seems to be working from her. Even just from an entertainment point of view, she is so great to watch at the moment.
She is, and she's also got the excitement, unpredictability of potentially having some bad races too. The mass start in Ruhpolding, 26th place there, and the mass start in Lenzerheide, 22nd place. So some of those head-to-head pressure battles, she can struggle with those. We saw also in the pursuit, dropping from 7th to 12th. And missing lots of targets on all of those occasions, 7, 6, 6 out of 20. I think that we can see Julia Simon struggle to maintain a high performance, particularly in the head-to-head bouts, as Mesdrea comes out of the range recovering from her second disaster in the stand shooting, her first stand shooting, excuse me.
Just Simon's second win on the World Cup this season. The first coming last week in Nové Město in the pursuit. But Flokstad Johansen, 19 out of 20. She will fall outside of the top 20 though, even just with that good shooting record. Such a challenge to be starting bib 85. Only stepping up to the World Cup last week for the first time this season in Nové Město. And well, Scott, you have to feel, looking down the order, there's plenty in the men's race as well who either made debuts or were competing for the first time this season in Nové Město. They've made the trip over to Pokljuka and once again battling with such challenging conditions.
I think these challenging conditions often favour those with the stronger mindsets, the ability to perform despite external factors like the wind, like the fog, like the rain. But I think the rain has got to be up there with the worst of them.
Yeah. Absolutely. We saw that last week with Campbell Wright, didn't we? Starting down in 50th and able to force a top 10 finish in really challenging conditions in Nové Město. And well, you could argue even the likes of Anna Magnusson, I think, was well down in the order in terms of her bib number, 47. and able to finish inside the top 10.
Yeah, today's super challenging, and you've got to feel sorry for those such as Harodna, who started with bib 71, did the perfect 20 for 20, only for it to fall apart on the ski speed. But still, even by her standard, it seemed like she had a fantastic ski speed today.
Absolutely. When you look at that step up in terms of just the finishing position, and I know that doesn't tell the complete story very well, rarely ever, but when you look at that level of jump, she'll be more than happy with that, and certainly I'm looking forward to seeing what she can do under better conditions in the future at just 20 years old. Bib 103, Margie Freed of the USA, also having a challenging first standing shoot, and she starts with a miss on a final visit to the range.
21 seconds until the first shot, but nice rhythm so far, about 4 seconds between the second and third, 5.1 to fourth, so it's inconsistent in terms of the breathing. That could be the wind, but 4 out of 5 at the last time of asking, and these conditions, that's great from Margie Freed. She should be very pleased with it.
Maria Romanova, one a miss from each of her visits so far.
Can she change it up now with 3 out of 3? It's looking good to break the pattern, and in a positive direction. That's 5 out of 5. The power of hitting targets as well, Ellen, cannot be understated. Harodna, she was the 40th fastest ski speed on lap 1, 53rd on lap 2, but then started to climb up the order again, finishing 39th on her 4th lap in ski speed, and that is despite the track getting more broken up as the race progressed. 48th fastest ski speed in total.
Slidelik of Latvia.
One of the challenges the biathletes face is picking even just the last line. Do they go through the center or to the side? Notice that most people chose to go through the center despite how crumble it had become. And that's because on the side, it's so bogged down that the conditions are so slushy that it's much, much slower to go through that slush, as we saw there on the final 100 meters for the Kazakhstan biathlete.
Well, from the athlete's approach perspective to the line, on that left-hand side, you can see a huge puddle, and particularly with so many of the athletes in this women's race opting to go central, I wonder maybe how many for the men will be forced out to the right-hand side just owing to the better snow conditions over there.
And they'll check, they'll have a look. Yeah. They will try and see which one works best, as Meng is deciding to go down the center just like so many others, and only testing will give them the answer. But unfortunately, with conditions changing so much, it could easily be the case that come the final, or the final 100 meters in their race, it's completely different from when they tested.
And actually looking at it now from that angle, a slightly better angle, you can see as well there's quite the puddle on the right hand side as well, and actually it's a longer puddle, so there might not be any other option than just to go straight through the slush. It will certainly make for a very interesting men's short individual, where so many are in contention for the discipline globe, which on the women's side has been won by Lou Jean Monod. It's so open that even Otto and Vinius down in 20th in the standings could theoretically take the discipline globe. Scott, we will be trying our very best to keep up with all the numbers, but it is so wide open, and the conditions today could play a huge role in who takes home that small globe.
Oh, it's so exciting, and that's what makes the stakes of this, I would say, notorious biathlon event, the individual, which I think biathletes can really appreciate, knowing just how hard it is to achieve the perfect shooting results. It's going to be high stakes, and lovely that we get to see so many biathletes going head to head for that crystal globe.
And shoot of China, 17 out of 20 and 78 today.
And it's going to be so interesting this weekend watching the head-to-head battles in these conditions, where it's pretty fair. Unlike the individual, where some people have finished their race before many have started, the mass start is everyone goes at the same time. The relay, everyone goes at the same time. It's much more fair.
Yeah, of course, those races to come. No racing tomorrow. As you said, the men's individual also shortened and taking place at 3:15 Central European time this afternoon. And then we have both the men's and the women's mass start on Saturday, followed by the single mixed and mixed relays on Sunday. With, of course, this being the deciding week for the Crystal Globes, in which way they are going within the disciplines, with the mass starts next to be decided on Saturday. It's got a day off, obviously, between the competition, that purely to make sure that the course is ready to go, and also give the IBU some movement if one of the races couldn't take place today.
I think they'll be getting volunteers from far-flung places to come and shovel snow onto this track. They will need every centimetre they can achieve because with the rain forecasted and heavy melt expected, this track is going to be very tough to preserve. They will, of course, preserve it, but it has to be safe, and that's the IBU's first priority, is safety.
Yeah, that was one of the things that there was plenty of discussion about after Nove Miesto, is when you looked at the data, there wasn't a huge amount of difference between what you'd expect and what was delivered using the alternative start groups, pointing towards the fact that actually the conditions were more levelling, and really was there the requirement to go to the alternative start groups. When the IBU responded to that, their decision was actually because of the safety. They wanted to stick with it for both the races, and safety always the first priority for the IBU when deciding which start group system will be used.
And then the question becomes, safety for who? Because somebody has to start at the end, and if those athletes at the end are going in less safe conditions, then the question becomes, why are the top biathletes in the world, the safety of them being favoured over those starting later? Which is a challenge presented by some of the coaches, as Beletskaya of Kazakhstan comes across the line with her 16 out of 20 hits.
Well, you could see Beletskaya there just really struggling through the slush, and particularly when you're at the end of your race, the last thing you want to be doing is doing what I think it was Heidenberg had to do, and sort of skip through the puddles there. It's super challenging conditions as we see Margie Free come towards the line, and we'll keep an eye on what line she takes. All the athletes really taking this central funnel as they come through, but it is getting really torn up.
Free doing really well to hold her balance, and yeah, we saw the skipping, and Magnussen also doing a really great skipping there as Fried celebrates to the brave fans who have stayed out to watch till the very end. It's hard, and it's actually just annoying. Coming towards the finish line, you want to put in a sprint finish, but you can barely stay on your feet. It's so frustrating, especially when your legs are screaming at you.
Well, that was my first thought when you mentioned the head-to-head races there, and we have seen some really impressive sprint finishes this season, and this, it proves a challenge, doesn't it? Because if you are the athlete who has the best line, you'll want to go central. If you have just the edge by a fraction, you'll want to take the central position. And if you're the chasing athlete who thinks they have enough power to push around and really challenge for a sprint finish, you can't go either side here.
It's such a good observation, and one that every team, including the coaches of Remenova now, she crosses the line with her 3 penalties. All those coaches are going to be discussing and figuring out a strategy for, if it comes down to a sprint finish, what line do you want to take?
Yeah.
It starts not from the 100 metres leading into the sprint finish,
well back.
but way back. Who wants to come down the hill in front? And I would suggest that being in front, coming down the hill, serves that athlete best, because they get to choose which track to go into the finish on.
It really changes the tactics, doesn't it? And of course, something that we won't maybe get into as much today, other than pacing, as we saw with Julia Simon doing an excellent, perfect job at that, as well as the complete race, you have to say, from the French woman. But particularly when we hit the weekend and we go to these head-to-head bouts, it will be something that rears its head. The tactics as our final finisher, Kirakuba of Kazakhstan, across the line.
19 out of 20. Not bad.
No, not at all, particularly when you look at those further back, but a huge number of DNSs and DNFs as well. 8 DNSs, including Dola Teavera and Sophie Chavot, and then 3 DNFs today. Just once again adding to the point of the conditions and the challenges. But someone who rode them incredibly well, Julia Simon, the world champion in this discipline. And, well, Scott, we've always known her for being the queen of pursuits, but individuals just really turning into her place to perform now.
Yeah, really pulling the best results out at the hardest, most challenging day, both psychologically with the pressure, but also physically with the rain and the horrible skiing conditions. So managing to maintain a top-level performance despite many factors pushing against her.
A consecutive podium for Hannah Erberg to take the silver despite one miss in the range. An excellent final lap to push her ahead of Franziska Preuss, who was perfect today, but enough to take a bronze medal. She's back on the podium after a disappointing start to trimester 3 in Nowe Miesto, as she battles to keep her grasp on the overall crystal globe. A brilliant performance from Anna-Karin Heidenberg, a new personal best for her, with 19 out of 20 in the flower ceremony, just off the podium. Oceane Michelon taking 5th, Justine Bressard-Boucher 6th. Just outside of the flower ceremony, Lou Jean-Monod, who's done more than enough to secure herself the individual discipline title today. And while we go through the results, worth mentioning as well, Elvira Erberg not competing today. She is here in Pokljuka, and she will return for the mass start after illness, where she'll be in the battle for the discipline globe in the mass start event.
Always painful to be present but not racing, but I think Elvira Erberg will be looking at the screen and thinking, wow, thank goodness I'm not suffering around that track today, essentially not having to go swimming.
Absolutely. Maybe some might argue giving her a slight advantage and being fresh, despite, of course, coming back from that illness. We'll have to see where she's at after ending the World Championships on the high and claiming her first world title as a solo athlete, her first global title as well in the mass start on the final day. We can take a look at the results, the current standings in the women's total score. Franziska Preuss, well, it looked like she might have just done enough to go over 1,000 points when we last look at the intermediates, but being bumped down, she sits just below that mark. And, well, Scott, this will no doubt roll on for into next week, and excuse me, will be a brilliant battle right to the end.
Absolutely, and Preuss just behind Lou Jean-Monod in the individual, but just ahead, but showing that she has every intention to defend that overall total score, and I guess proving me wrong, because I think it's going to be so hard for her to maintain it. But we have some good head-to-head battles. Lou Jean-Monod, she loves those head-to-head battles as well, and Julia Simon less so, but way off the mark. So I think Franziska Preuss now, in my estimation, has an even greater chance of maintaining that top crystal globe with a total score than I had projected before today's race.
Exactly, 60 points separating Francisca Preuss, who moved on to the yellow bib, and Lou Jean Monod, who is challenging her in second. And a change in the blue bib as well today. Scott Ocean Michelon going ahead of Jean Richard, but there's not much between the two young French women at all, both competing for the under-23 blue bib.
That's a fierce battle. Of course, it means something, as you can see that bird's eye view there showing the pumps around the track trying to eject as much water from the stadium as possible. One of the conditions of hosting biathlon races now is that pumps are part of the race venue's setup.
Julia, congratulations. That is your second consecutive win in the individual competition. But today the conditions were not that easy, but still you managed to shoot 20 out of 20 and win. How was it for you today?
Thank you. Yeah, it was a tough race today. I think I was lucky to start in the beam in front of the race, because when I watched the shooting range 10 minutes ago, the wind was stronger than during my race. But yeah, I think on the shooting range it was quite okay during the race, but the track was very difficult. It was a difficult race, and yeah, I feel like I'm really happy and really lucky to win this race today.
And now actually with this win you have wins in every victories, in every discipline we have, including short individual. Quite a great achievement.
Yeah, really happy with this. Yeah, I think for being a good biathlete you have to win in each discipline, so really happy to shoot 20 in individual races.
Thank you so much, congratulations again.
Thank you.
Well, confirmation of the Women's World Cup individual score, won by Lou Jean Monod. 221 points in the end, with Francisca Preuss in second with 190. Scott, with Lou Jean Monod taking that discipline title, just the second of her career after the mass start last season, how much do you think that will affect her racing for the next solo races? Of course, the mass start. That's another weight lifted off her shoulders after she didn't quite hit the height she wanted to at the World Championships.
Yeah, it's different. It will affect different biathletes in different ways. But Lou Jean Monod, she does love that head-to-head battle, and with the pressure off her shoulders now, having done so well and already claimed the Crystal Globes, she will be more relaxed, and that will only enhance her ability come the head-to-head bouts.
So back out in front of the brave crowd who have continued to stay in the stands to witness this flower ceremony. Horrible conditions, not just for the athletes, the fans as well, plenty of which who have made the journeys and continue to follow the athletes around the continent.
Well, the weather is good here down in the town of Bled. It's one of the most beautiful places on the World Cup circuit. Athletes love to stay there and jog around the lake. You can see the wind there in these fan flags.
Yeah, the rain continuing to fall down as Franziska Preuß steps up to the podium. Back on track after a disappointing week in Nowe Miesto and back on the podium. Presented her prizes by Klemen Polancic, the president of the Biathlon Assembly at the Ski Association of Slovenia. And Tim Klanchnik, the IBU Executive Board member, present here in Pokljuka. Back-to-back podiums for Hanna Öberg. It will take a huge amount of confidence from the last 2 weeks. A challenging start to the season, to really say the least. And Scott, for an athlete who is so much in the public eye under a huge amount of pressure, always expected to deliver for Sweden, it's great to see her back to her very best after a really emotionally challenging first half of the season.
She really climbed to success at Pyeongchang at the Olympics there, and then expectation all the way along in the years thereafter.
She can't keep her off top spot at the moment. Julia Simon ending the season on one very big high indeed, it seems. The world champion backing up that gold medal in Lenzerheide here in Pokljuka. Her first individual win of the season on the World Cup. And finding some excellent and we must say very entertaining form right at the end of the season. There is your podium for the first of our 2 short individuals today. Huge personal best by 10 places for Anna-Karin Heidenberg. A bow from Ocean Michelon towards her teammates, with Justine Bréchard-Boucher rounding out the top 6, and a fist bump for everyone just outside of the flower ceremony in the pursuit in Nowe Miesto, and you could see her disappointment on her face that day to not make the flower ceremony. Wearing bib number 1 today, a hard task of setting the early pace in challenging conditions, but enough to see her into the top 6. 2 misses on the day for her, along with her compatriot Ocean Michelon. So a dramatic first part of our double-header here in Pokljuka. The rain continues to fall. The fans out in support and braving the conditions. We'll be back for the men's short individual 15 kilometres at 3:15 Central European time.